I guess state your name and content area.
I'm Dr. Celeste Gagnon. I'm an anthropologist. I primarily study human skeletal remains excavated from archaeological sites, and I work in two different regions. I work on the north coast of Peru, and I work with Native Americans in New York and Pennsylvania. Among the Iroquois, well, the Confederacy itself, sort of the central ideology to the Confederacy, and that's a key piece among all Iroquois groups, is family structure, is family as political entity. So in the prehistoric period, in the early contact period, Iroquois families are organized around a matriarch, her adult children, her adult daughters, and their husbands and their children. And so all sort of decisions about how the economy runs and all of those sorts of things are at the household level. Then each of those households exist within villages, right? And so going up that level, then the village is considered in a way two sides of a family, right? And so you're going to have people, other families to whom you have requirements, sort of the things that you need to do, the expectations you have. Those villages then are linked larger level at the tribe, right? And then those tribes are linked together into the Confederacy. One of the key components to this is that at every level there are decision makers, right? So the adult daughters in the family have some say, but sort of the matriarch is in charge. The matriarchs together in a clan are sort of in charge of what the clan is doing. Then those people send representatives to the Confederacy. And like a family, I mean, it's a little bit different than a democracy, like our own democracy, because in a family, people sort of all have to be on board, and the Confederacy runs on complete agreement. So an issue is debated and decided as long as it takes for everyone to come to a consensus is how long it takes for the decision to be made. And so in that way too, it sort of models the family in that you have to sort of get everybody on board in your family. It's not like, well, if you don't agree, you can just leave the family and do something different, right? You have to sort of be on board. So they contribute to the success because one of the key components about family members is the sort of notion that when someone dies, a very common ideology among the Iroquois is that the only deaths that are accidental are drowning. All other deaths are caused by someone and thus require retribution and revenge. And so by making all the members of all the tribal groups of the Iroquois Confederacy into family, what you're basically saying is, since they're family, they're also not responsible for those deaths. And so it turns all sort of aggression outside the Confederacy. And so this is a really important sort of form, particularly in the European contact period, because they are always focused outward, right? And so this sort of notion of the Iroquois as sort of these fierce fighters and being involved in so much of colonial politics is sort of based on this notion that every time someone dies, someone has to pay for it, that someone is someone else, someone outside. And it allows them to expand their territory, it allows them to take advantage of other native groups in the region, right? And it directs all sort of disagreement outside. So the American government is actually the sort of founding people of the American government really use the Iroquois Confederacy as a model. Right, so the notion of the confederated tribes, their representation, the sort of negotiation, a lot of that is built on the Iroquois Confederacy as a model, because of course there isn't one, right? So when they're creating the American government, there really isn't any kind of representative government. That's one of the ways in which it really compares pretty strongly, really influences pretty strongly American government. Of course, it's different in that the American government is majority rule, right? So that there are some checks and balances that prevent that. Like the reason why the Congress, the House of Representatives is so ineffective is because there's enough checks and balances that they can't come to a consensus and not enough can get done. But if you can sort of break the threshold, so the Confederacy is really the Oneida, who are sort of in the central part, who are siding with the Americans. So in our system, if 1 of 5 disagrees, well then it's too bad for that 1, right? And so there are some modifications there. It's different because it doesn't actually require agreement of everyone, right? It isn't a consensus format. So it's sort of like the structure is similar, but the ultimate mechanism by which you reach an agreement is different.